So the last thing I'm going to show you how to do here is how to dynamically add a view. Now, this is not something that you're going to want to do very often because it kind of does break this whole MVC architecture, but it is something that you may need to do occasionally, and you should really know how to do this in case you do need to do this, because not all the time are you going to be able to define your entire view up front. Sometimes you're going to need to dynamically add some controls. So I'm here in the main view controller, and what I'm going to do is on the view.load, I'm going to go ahead and add a label, and we're just going to add a label dynamically, and you could do this with any kind of UI control. So the way that we do this is we'll go ahead and declare a new UI label. I'll call this dynamic label, and we're going to allocate some memory for this. Let me clear this out here. So we'll do a UI label alloc, and then we're going to do our init, except we're going to init with frame. And what this does is basically gives us a bound or a rectangle in which we can draw our label in. If we don't do this, then the label won't have any size and won't have any location. So we can do the CG rect make, and this is the position, XY position. We'll start at 0, 0. We'll give it a width of about 300 and a height of about 100. So now we've allocated our dynamic label, and then let's go ahead and set some text on there. So we'll do dynamic label.text equals, and we'll just call this dynamic label. And then the next thing that we'll do, we need to, this @ sign should be outside of your quotes. And then we'll need to add this to the view. So if we do self.view, this is a root view of this this controller is managing, and so we can do add subview, and then we can just add this dynamic label as a subview. So when we have our main view, this subview will be displayed underneath there. We're adding it. If you've done ASP.NET, this is like adding control to the controls collection on a page. And then the very last thing that we'll need to do is, remember, we've allocated some memory here, so we need to release it. So we'll just do dynamic label release. And you may be a little bit confused as to why can we release this memory here when, aren't we just going to release it even though we're still using it? Well, when we do this self view add subview, we're basically telling this view, you're responsible for this guy, and it's gonna increment the reference count, and it's gonna basically keep track of this object for us. So we can release it knowing that we've given care of it to this subview or to this view. So I'll go ahead and run this, and we should see that dynamic label show up. And there you go. You see the dynamic label has showed up at the top here. And this is something that, like I said, you're not going to use very often, but sometimes you're going to need to do this if you have a UI that kind of has a dynamic UI where you have to be able to create the controls at runtime, and it's definitely possible to do in iOS, and it's really not that hard.